codes into the prototype grids. And future ones have more than usual. Into the prototype grids. And future ones have more than usual. And as you build Partakai and Keylon codes into your Partakai grids, you are building yourself toward becoming what they are. So it's a different relationship than we're taught, like through many of the religions that teach reincarnation. They were almost done in a symbolic way, because to go into the science of it would have been very difficult at the times those religions were seated. But we're all here all at the same time, and if we get good at it, we can learn to communicate back and forth and teach our other incarnates to communicate with us. We can influence them, we can become their spirit guides to talk to them in their head. You know what I mean? Our thoughts, if we know how to direct them, can go back in time once we find the incarnate, once we start to find the memory in our cellular memory. Once you have your target, you can aim for that target, go back and think some thoughts in her head, and she'll pick them up as her own, and she'll choose whether or not to act on them, because we can't change their free will, and our free will is protected too. But that's where we get a lot of our thoughts or our inspirations from. They're literally future aspects of our own identity that are leading us onward and trying to, help us get to the right spot and avoid, some of the negative things. But it just, Patty was right for bringing that up, because if you haven't been familiar with the material, I throw simultaneous time around, like, everybody knows this, just like everybody knows, water is water. And maybe that's not true. I'm just so used to it myself, I don't even perceive time in a linear fashion. So thank you for bringing that up. I hope that helped. Did that help the new people in the group? Did it? Okay.
Once you get to think that way, you continue to think that way. I mean, the new information that comes through, you begin to think it and hear it a whole different kind of way than you did 2 years ago or a year ago.
Right.
And thinking that was my question. That's it. Okay.
Sometime after I started thinking in terms of parallel lives, I started realizing I had parallel selves alive in the Pleiades, which is why there's so much connection with that. And I have a lot of experience with channeling this body here, this time here. And in the course of my contacts with Pleiades, one of the things that started to happen was I started to channel through Pleiadian in Pleiades, which is like reverse process. That was pretty strange. I was stranger than just channeling this body.
So you found yourself as the disembodied spirit channeling through a biological Pleiadian form.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if they can do it with us, we can do it with them. But usually people don't get into that yet, because we're so used to thinking of ourselves as physical receivers. But that's, I've heard of that. Is there a question attached to that, or?
No. I just wanted to point out also that many of us who have some connection with UFOs and ETs probably have parallel selves of other planets.
Yeah. Yeah, I do find that to be very true. And it goes back into even our genetic code. Certain humans on the planet have a more of an extraterrestrial genetic code than they do human codes. Humans were originally extraterrestrials. We were created from the genetic code. We were starseeds, and a conglomerate of different ET groups got together on the planet. It wasn't even on Earth when this started, and they created the prototype for our species. Now, we've gone through millions of years of evolution on other planets and then here, and through that we've been diluted a bit, and certain groups of humans interacted with Earth species, which created a mutation. Many humans now carry that mutation, and they call it human. This is the human code. Most humans don't realize that they do have some form of ET genes in them, and that usually means you will have ET incarnations as well, because there is a connection between what you carry in your gene code and your incarnational lineage.
I think humans are the mutation.
Yeah. What we call human today, your basic human code, there really was no such thing.
We're substandard mutation, what we used to be.
Well, that's such a terrible way to look at it, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it substandard. I would say genetically challenged.
That's what
Trying to be politically correct here. Yeah. We've been genetically challenged because of some manipulations that have been done to us on purpose by other ET groups that didn't want us to evolve, and also because some of the methods we got ourselves into. And there were periods in our history where we interbred with animals from the Earth. And this deteriorated our higher stellar gene code. So there's a lot of things. We are a bit genetically challenged right now, and that's what we're trying to undo by the process of learning the chakras, learning to activate them, learning to re-stimulate the DNA to grow back into what it once was. So.
Interesting concept. The only book I ever read that really went into that was Rick Montgomery's book, The World Before, about the mixing of animals in the earth.
Some Casey material did it.
Well, yeah, but Casey and Ruth both did, both talked about it, but Ruth Montgomery wrote a whole book explaining that things. Very, very interesting book.
There were some really horrendous species that came out of it, too.
Absolutely.
We're one of the better ones.
They were
This humans.
the subhumans almost.
Yeah.
And
They're-
almost like not what we would consider a slave, but a subhuman.
Our apes came out of that, some of them. Now, not all apes are the same.
Mhm.
Okay, there are certain apes that are genetically the same, and then some of them aren't. They don't really know where they fit yet. And some of the supposedly are like Macdon Man and all those guys. Not all of them were direct associations with our lineage. Some of them were creations that happened as a result of combining us with an animal species. Many of the apes actually evolved out of us rather than we evolving out of the apes, where we had a stronger gene code to begin with. We were here first. We weren't created from the apes. They were created from us. So where are we going with that? Gotta get on the right tangent here. So anybody else that has any questions?
Well, no, I started to talk to Kathy. I want to talk to Kathy earlier about the imperative for doing this work. To the extent that we have a time continuum shift in the next century, early next century. I mean, we want to spend a few minutes just glossing over that so she gets clear that there's an imperative to do this work for survival.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Well, I'm going to try to make this short because this is a lecture all in itself on what's taking place there, because a lot of it's really technical. Basically, what I have been taught by the Guardians in some of my encounters with them is that there are certain things, just as we go through evolutionary cycles as a species, our planet does too. There are time cycles that are involved with the planet's evolution. And at certain points in those time cycles, the planetary grid, which is called the Pre-Keylontic grid, it's an energy grid that the planet's matter is structured on. In each cycle, it passes through the grid of its double. All right, and this is a natural process, and it's not necessarily a negative thing, as long as the grids are imbalanced with each other, where the vibrational rate of our planet is within a comparable range to that of its double. When they pass through each other, an energetic exchange takes place, and it actually stimulates the planet into its next cycle. So this is a natural thing that we're headed for. All right, that we would do all right with if it weren't for some of the manipulations that have been inflicted upon us by intruder extraterrestrial visitors. They've been here since about 1937. They've been working with the United States and several other governments since about right before the end of World War II. They had something to do with the outcome of that war. Because of the energetic things that they are doing to the grid on the planet, our vibrational rate, the vibrational rate of our planet's grid, is not within an acceptable range to pass through its double without creating changes, like major Earth changes. So that's where you're getting a lot of the predictions where people are saying, oh, we're going to have floods, we're going to have volcanoes, all this stuff. People are picking up on that probability where this does happen. Now, the Guardians have assured me they're not going to allow this to happen, because if it was just allowed to go its course, it would wipe out our species. The planet had survived, but not many living things on it would. There are too many things at stake with our evolutionary development and what the Guardians would like to see us grow into for them to allow it to happen. So they have intervened right around the time of the harmonic convergence, and I believe that was in 1987. In 87, there was enough people that came together in peace that showed the Guardians that the species is worth intervening for. There were enough of us concerned about healing and about changing things to be in harmony with the universe, so they intervened. What they have created is a situation, they've explained to me a situation that we're in. Not only do we have these earth changes facing us if we don't shift the planetary rate to a higher level, there's also something that's happening in our future in this probability. So we're in a time continuum right now. Okay, we're circling here, let's say. In the year 2976, in this time continuum, because of the manipulations that are taking place now by the intruder visitor forces, the planet implodes. And what happens when the planet implodes is not only the fact that everything else gets killed biologically, but its Keylon codes, the Keylon codes of its consciousness, get ripped apart and fragmented back down to the first dimension, where they have to start re-evolving all over again. So the Guardians do not want to see us have to go through this, and it's not just about us anymore, because if this planet implodes, it's going to take a number of other planetary systems with it, and it's going to rip a hole in the fabric of the time matrix, which is going to be like a vortex. This sucks other things down into it. This has to be stopped, and they have a couple of options. They need to stop the intruders from doing this. They can't directly intervene and, with us not knowing anything, just go have this big war with the intruders out there and we won't even see it. It won't work that way. The portals are too sensitive on this planet right now. If they started to try to control the intruders, what the intruders would do is retaliate. They wouldn't win, but they could blow the planet up right now in the process. So the Guardians will not intervene by force, but they can intervene by educating us and by infusing the planetary grid with more energy. What's taking place with the intruder agendas right now is, because of the time cycles that we're in, they have until the year 2012 to get control over the portal system on this planet. If they don't do it by then, they're not going to have the opportunity to do it, because that's when we go into the phase where we cross through our double, and it speeds up our planet enough where the intruders won't be able to manipulate anymore. They don't have that range for frequency manipulation. So right now, between now and 2012, the intruders are trying to set up a couple of agendas here. Their first area of interest is in getting us under control on a mass level without us knowing, basically. They're setting up what's called a frequency fence. A frequency fence is created through certain types of electromagnetic pulses that are run through physical stone of the planet, and also run as a phantom trace along known electrical lines. They would like to use these things, and they have studied for about, for maybe 30 years, trying to figure out exactly what frequencies to use in order to harness our perceptions. They have to know where our crystal bodies function. They have to know what frequencies our neurological structure is picking up on in order to know where to block. And that's what they're trying to do right now, because if they can get us under frequency fence control, they can carry on whatever they're doing, and we'll be clueless. Once we're under the frequency fence, they can project what's called a holographic insert. It's like a 5-sensory hologram. This could be a holographic insert, and we wouldn't know the difference if we were under a frequency fence. It makes a whole global population very easy to control. You can make them see, think, feel, or whatever, anything you want to. And that's one of the things the intruders are trying to do. The Guardians, of course, are having their counter strategy. This cannot be allowed to happen, because if it does, we have a problem when we pass through our double, because the grid vibrates too low, because the frequency fence hampers the resonance rate or the frequency rate of the planet, not just the people. And there will be earth changes and all those kind of things. And it will also keep us in the time continuum where we hit that 2976 implosion. So the Guardians have to get us out of this time continuum now, before 2012. They've created something called the bridge zone. It's an artificial time continuum. And the time continuums, you can look at them as bands of frequency, really. Like frequency waves, if you want to just conceptualize it that way. Waves of frequency, and they go in spirals. So we're spiraling here in this one. They're creating another one here, and we need to make the leap up into here. Literally, the energetic grid of the planet will start to vibrate up to this one instead of down here. We will not see the reality down here as long as we make the shift to the bridge zone. So we're in the process now of learning the energy techniques and how they apply to our bodies So we can start to make differences in our bodies. We can, A, shift ourselves out of the range of the frequency fence transmissions. Then we become immune, and they can't mess with us. It's instant protection. Once you start bringing in your soul level identities, your D4, 5, and 6 identity, those frequencies are too high, and the frequency fence will not work on people who are embodying those frequencies. So that's the first thing for personal safety, is learning how to use the energy fields to block this attempted manipulation. Secondarily, the people that become aware of their energy systems and of the Earth's energy systems will be asked by the guardians to help do something called keying portals. All right? Just like we have a chakra system, the planet has a chakra system too. And just like our chakras can be out of balance and not functioning properly, so can the planets. What the guardians want us to do once we learn how to balance our own energy systems is to send energy into these portal areas on the planet and key them to a higher frequency out of the range of the intruder manipulation frequencies. So right now, there's this unseen battle for frequency for the portals going on between the intruder groups and the guardian groups. And the guardians are asking us to help, once we become aware of our own systems, to help with this project. We can help them seal the portals to a higher frequency into the frequencies that would be the same pattern as those of the bridge zone time cycle and out of the one where we hit the implosion. And so as we're learning these things, it's not just something fun to play with your energy and maybe you can speed up your own evolution. There are planetary stakes here at this point because it's a multi-level drama. It's not just that we're at a certain sensitive point in our time continuum. It's not just that there's intruder manipulation. It's all of these things put into one big picture all happening at the same time. And that's why there's so many people having contact with ETs and stuff at this point. The intruders are trying to manipulate, and the guardians are trying to get people out of the manipulation and educate them, because everybody out there, except for us down here, sees the big drama that's taking place. This doesn't happen every day on this planet or any other one. All right, so that's kind of like the framework within which we're learning these things about Keylontic and about our energy fields. And I could probably describe that. I would rather, if I was going to describe that to you or to anybody new that hasn't heard that part of it, I would rather do that with diagrams and charts and everything to show exactly what I'm talking about. It's hard to do without that, but that's basic rundown, in a quick format. So I hope that helps. Okay. Sure. Okay. Is there any